Thank you for being an incredible supporter of the 10X podcast group, the home of the skillful art of manipulation. We're thrilled to have you as part of our growing community. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your likes and comments mean the world to us and help us reach a wider audience with our stories. Plus, with new episodes released every day, your feedback plays a vital role in shaping what we create. It truly makes a difference. Your loyalty and enthusiasm fuel our passion for crafting gripping tales, and we're so grateful for your support. Today, we're excited to present The Cuckold's Lie, a story that promises to keep you on the edge of your seat. Let's dive into this thrilling narrative together. Chapter 1: The Contract. I used to believe love was about devotion, about trust, about two people binding their souls together in an unbreakable vow. The kind of love that withstands the test of time, weathering every storm, every challenge, every temptation. I thought I had that with Isabella. I thought she was my salvation, my reward for years of building an empire from nothing. I was a self-made man, a king in my own right, and she was my queen. Or at least, that's the fantasy I sold myself. But love had nothing to do with it. When I first met Isabella, she was draped in seduction, wrapped in silk and sin, every movement a carefully orchestrated performance designed to draw men into her orbit. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made time slow, the kind who knew she had the power to turn every head without lifting a finger. I was no exception. I had spent a lifetime resisting temptation, never one to let emotions dictate my decisions. But with her it was different. With her it was a losing battle from the start. She wasn't just beautiful. She was magnetic. The way her lips curved into a knowing smile, the way her voice melted into a whisper when she spoke only to me. It was an illusion so perfect that even I, a man who built his life on seeing through deception, fell willingly into her trap. She played me masterfully, made me believe that I had won her, when in reality, she had chosen me. And when a woman like Isabella chooses a man, it's never about love. It's about control. At first, she played the role of the devoted wife flawlessly. For the first few months, she was the perfect companion, attentive, affectionate, eager to be the center of my world. She lavished me with praise, touched me with a reverence that made me want to believe, that I was the only man who had ever truly mattered to her. But then, like all illusions, the cracks began to show. It started with the lingering glances at other men, the playful touches that lasted a second too long, the late nights out with her friends that ended in a phone call at 3 a.m. with slurred words and hollow apologies. And I, like a fool, forgave. Again and again. Then one night, she came to me with her proposal. An open marriage, Thomas. Her voice was soft, deceptively sweet, her fingers tracing idle patterns against my chest as we lay in bed. It'll make us stronger. Stronger. The word rattled in my skull, bouncing off the walls of my disbelief. I had given her everything. A life most people could only dream of, a home that rivaled palaces, a loyalty so unshakable that I had built my world around her. And yet, it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. I should have walked away then. But I didn't. Because I loved her. Because I was weak. Because I was a fucking fool. I remember staring at her, searching her face for some sign that this was a joke, that this was some sick game she was playing to test my devotion. But she was serious. Dead serious. And worse, she was patient. She knew I wouldn't say yes right away, so she worked on me little by little. "You trust me, don't you?" she'd whisper, pressing her lips to my jaw, making me feel like denying her would be a betrayal in itself. "Don't you want me to be happy?" She used every weapon in her arsenal, her body, her words, her ability to twist logic until I no longer knew which way was up. And eventually she won. It was gradual at first. She started with strangers, men I didn't know, men I could pretend didn't exist beyond the hours she spent with them. She assured me it was just physical, that it didn't mean anything, that I was still the love of her life. And I swallowed every lie, choked it down with expensive whiskey and forced indifference. But then she took it further. She set her sights on Daniel, my best friend, the man I trusted more than anyone in this world. I remember the night she told me. She was so calm about it, so nonchalant, as if it was just another item on her to-do list. "Daniel and I have been talking," she said, stretching out on the chaise lounge in her silk robe, her hair still damp from the shower. "He's curious. About our arrangement." I felt my stomach twist, my jaw clench so tight I thought my teeth might crack. "What the fuck are you saying, Isabella?" She rolled her eyes, as if my anger was some unnecessary inconvenience. I'm saying he wants to be a part of it. And honestly, I think it would be good for you, Thomas. Good for me. The words felt foreign on my tongue, like they belonged to someone else. She sighed, sitting up, fixing me with that knowing, condescending gaze she had perfected over the years. You hold on to things too much. You need to learn to let go, to embrace new experiences. New experiences. I should have left. Right then and there. I should have walked out, let the door slam behind me, burned every bridge connecting me to her. But I didn't. Because she had already hollowed me out, carved me into a version of myself that no longer knew how to exist without her. And that's how I ended up here. Sitting in my own house, in my own bed, while she fucked my best friend in front of me. I clenched my fists, nails biting into my palms, but I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just watched. Watched as Daniel ran his hands over my wife's body, watched as she arched beneath him, moaning louder than she ever had for me. Watched as she turned her head toward me, eyes burning with cruel amusement. You like this, don't you? She whispered, her voice thick with pleasure. I didn't respond. She smirked. Watching a real man fuck your wife. Knowing you'll never have her the way he does. I swallowed the lump in my throat, my body rigid, my pulse thundering. But I said nothing. Because she thought she had won. She thought she had broken me. But she didn't know the truth. I had been recording everything. Every moment. Every touch. Every degrading whisper. And soon, it would be her turn to watch. Soon, I would be the one holding the leash. And when the moment came, when I finally tore her world apart, she would know exactly how it felt to be humiliated. Exactly how it felt to lose. Because love had nothing to do with it. This was war. And I was done playing the fool. Chapter 2, The Game We Play. The moment Daniel finished, Isabella let out a satisfied sigh and stretched out like a cat basking in the warmth of the sun. She didn't glance at me immediately. No, she liked to savor these moments. The aftermath was just as intoxicating for her as the act itself. She relished the tension, the weight of my presence in the room, the knowledge that she had broken another piece of me. It wasn't just about the pleasure. It was about domination. Daniel stood, not even bothering to look ashamed, stretching his arms and cracking his neck as if he had just finished a workout rather than violating the sanctity of my marriage. He ran a hand through his hair and smirked at me. You all right there, Thomas? His voice dripped with mockery. I didn't answer. I kept my expression neutral, face blank, eyes unreadable. That was the only way to survive this, to give them nothing. No reaction. No fuel for their fire. Isabella finally turned her head, looking at me with an almost lazy amusement, her lips curving in that smirk I had once adored but now loathed. She pulled the silk sheets over her body, not out of modesty, she had none, but to toy with me, to create the illusion that I had no right to see her anymore. That this was his moment, not mine. You didn't say a word, she mused, tilting her head as if studying a fascinating specimen. That's unlike you, my love. Daniel chuckled as he slipped back into his clothes. Maybe he's finally learning his place. I exhaled slowly, pressing my hands against the armrest of the chair I was sitting in. The room smelled of sweat, sex, and expensive perfume. It made my stomach turn, but I didn't move. Not yet. You've had your fun, I said, my voice steady, giving them nothing. Are you done? Daniel let out a low laugh. Oh, Thomas. You really don't get it, do you? This isn't just fun. This is what Isabella wants. What she needs. And the sooner you accept that, the easier it'll be for you. I shifted my gaze to him, finally allowing the smallest flicker of something, contempt, amusement, maybe both, to cross my face. Is that so? Oh, don't act so surprised. Isabella's voice was smooth, rolling over me like silk. You knew what you were getting into when you agreed to this. You knew I was never meant to be just yours. You want to control everything, Thomas. But you can't control me. I held her gaze, unflinching. You're right. I can't. She blinked, momentarily thrown off by my calmness. Daniel grabbed his phone from the nightstand, glancing at the screen before smirking. I should get going. Don't want to keep my real woman waiting. That was meant to cut me. Meant to reinforce my humiliation. But I was beyond feeling humiliated. Beyond anger, beyond jealousy. Because what neither of them knew was that I let them do this. I wanted them to believe they had won. And they had taken the bait so beautifully. Daniel strolled toward the door, pausing to slap a hand on my shoulder. A condescending, victorious gesture. Take care, old friend. I stayed still, letting him walk out, listening as his footsteps echoed down the hall. The sound of the front door closing was deafening in the silence that followed. Then it was just me and Isabella. She stretched again, reaching for a glass of wine on the nightstand. She sipped slowly, watching me over the rim, waiting. Testing. You know, she mused, swirling the deep red liquid in her glass. You could have stopped this any time. You could have told me no. You could have walked away. I stood. Slowly. Her smirk widened. But you didn't. I stepped toward the bed, looming over her. She didn't flinch. She never did. Because you like it, don't you? She whispered, her voice laced with mock sympathy. You like being used. You like being weak. You like being powerless. She had no idea. Go to sleep, Isabella. I turned and walked out before she could respond. Before she could see the smile that curled at my lips. Because she thought she had won. She had no idea that she had already lost. I made my way to my study, locking the door behind me. The air in here was different. Clean. Free from the suffocating scent of betrayal. This was my space. The only place in this house where she held no power. I moved to my desk and pressed a button beneath the surface. A hidden drawer clicked open, revealing a sleek, custom-built hard drive. I plugged it into my computer. And there it was. Every second. Every moan. Every filthy, degrading word she had ever whispered while she let another man inside her. Every smirk, every glance, every cruel flicker of amusement in her eyes when she looked at me. I leaned back in my chair, watching the footage play on the screen. High definition. Crisp audio. She had underestimated me. She thought I was weak. But she didn't know what I had been doing in the shadows. I had traced every dollar she siphoned from my accounts. I had proof of her lies, her infidelity, her manipulation. I had built a case so airtight that when the time came, she wouldn't have a single way out. Felix, my lawyer, had been helping me prepare for months. He was the only one who knew the truth. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Felix. All the documents are finalized. Whenever you're ready. I stared at the message for a long moment before setting the phone down. Not yet. Not quite yet. There was still more to do. Still more for her to lose. Because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about control. And I wouldn't take her down until I had taken everything from her. Not just her money. Not just her reputation. But the very foundation of the power she thought she held over me. Only then would I strike. Only then would she understand. That this wasn't just a game to me. This was war. And I never lost. Chapter 3. Playing the Fool. I woke up before Isabella. I always did. Even before our marriage had rotted into this twisted spectacle. I had been the one to rise first. It was a habit, ingrained in me from years of running my company, of making decisions before the rest of the world had even rubbed the sleep from its eyes. But now I woke up for a different reason. Because the silence of the early morning was the only time I could breathe. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of her beside me. She was tangled in the sheets, her breath soft and even, completely unaware that the man beside her was already plotting her downfall. I turned my head slightly, studying her in the dim light of dawn. She was beautiful. Painfully so. Even after everything, I could admit that. Her long lashes rested against her cheeks, her lips slightly parted, the faintest hint of a satisfied smile still lingering from the night before. The same lips that had whispered lies into my ears, had wrapped around another man's name, had kissed me after she had finished fucking him. My jaw clenched, the sickening memories swirling like poison in my blood. But I didn't move, didn't react. Because this was part of the game. I let out a slow breath, forcing my mind to steel itself, to push past the raw edges of my anger and focus on the bigger picture. It wasn't enough to hate her. Hatred was easy, predictable. I needed patience. I needed to wait until she was the one waking up every morning with me haunting her thoughts. Soon, carefully, I slipped out of bed, moving with the kind of precision that came from years of training myself to be unnoticed. I didn't want to wake her. Not yet. Let her sleep. Let her think that everything was normal. Let her believe that I was still the fool she had married. I made my way down the hall, stepping into my study and locking the door behind me. The moment the lock clicked into place, my entire posture changed. My shoulders relaxed, my mask dropped, and for the first time since I had walked into that bedroom last night, I allowed myself to feel. The rage, the humiliation, the fury. I pressed my hands against the desk, exhaling sharply, letting the emotions pass through me. Letting them fuel me. Then I opened my laptop. The screen flickered to life, casting a soft glow across the dark room. With a few keystrokes, I accessed the files I had stored, the countless hours of footage I had gathered. My finger hovered over one of the videos, my stomach twisting as I pressed play. And there she was. Isabella. Naked, writhing beneath Daniel, her voice dripping with ecstasy, her moans slicing through me like a blade. "You like that?" she whispered in the video, her body arching. "You feel so fucking good inside me." Daniel chuckled, his voice arrogant, full of smug satisfaction. "Better than your husband?" She laughed. "Thomas," she purred mockingly. "Oh, he's not a real man. Not like you." I reached forward and paused the video. My hands were shaking. Not with sadness. Not with heartbreak. But with something far, far darker. I inhaled deeply, pressing my fingers against my temples, willing myself to stay focused. I had known. I had known she was a liar, a manipulator, a woman who had built her life on deception. But watching her say it out loud, hearing the way she mocked me with such ease, with such pleasure, it solidified everything. I was done. Done playing her games. Done pretending that this was something I could ever forgive. I had spent months allowing this to happen. Allowing her to believe she had broken me. But now it was time for the next phase. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. "Felix, everything is in place. Whenever you're ready." A slow smirk pulled at the corner of my lips. Not yet. I needed Isabella to suffer. She needed to feel what it was like to be powerless. And that started today. The breakfast performance. By the time Isabella woke up, I was already in the kitchen. I played my role perfectly, just as she expected me to. The loving, devoted husband who was still too blind to see what was happening in front of him. The fool. I had made coffee, laid out fresh fruit, prepared her favorite breakfast. Not because I wanted to, but because I wanted her to relax. To believe, for just a little longer, that she was still in control. She walked in, stretching, her silk robe slipping just enough to tease. "MMM," she murmured, rubbing her eyes. "You're up early." I smiled, pouring her a cup of coffee. "Habit." She took the cup, sipping slowly, her eyes studying me over the rim. She was suspicious. I could see it in the way she hesitated, the way her lips pressed together slightly. "You're being sweet today," she noted. "Am I not always?" I countered. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. I leaned against the counter, watching her, letting her settle into the comfort of thinking she still had me wrapped around her finger. Then I made my move. I was thinking. I started, my tone light, casual. "Maybe we should take a trip. Just the two of us." That caught her off guard. "A trip," she repeated. I nodded. "It's been a while since we've spent time together. I know things have been different, but I want to focus on us." Her grip on the coffee cup tightened, ever so slightly. She was panicking, because a trip meant isolation. It meant no Daniel. No distractions. Just me and her. She forced a smile, tilting her head. "That's sweet, Thomas. Really. But you know how busy I am right now." "Too busy for your husband?" I asked, my voice carrying just the right amount of hurt. She sighed dramatically. "You're making this into something it's not." She was already working to manipulate me, to shift the narrative. But I just nodded. "Of course. I understand." And just like that, she relaxed. Because she thought she had won. She had no idea that while she was sitting here, sipping her coffee, planning her next betrayal, I was already 10 steps ahead. And when the time came, when I finally struck, she wouldn't see it coming. Not until it was too late. Chapter 4, The Setup. The game begins. I watched Isabella move through our home as if she were a queen, gliding through her kingdom, unaware that the walls were closing in around her. She was arrogant, too confident, too certain that she had me wrapped around her delicate little finger. That was her first mistake. She believed in her power so absolutely, so blindly, that she never even considered the possibility that I could be playing her in return. She was an actress on a stage she thought she controlled, performing for an audience that had already turned the tables. I had spent months curating the perfect illusion, letting her believe that I was still the fool, still the broken, submissive husband watching from the sidelines as she owned me. But the truth? I had been the one pulling the strings all along. And now it was time to watch her fall. Unraveling the queen. She had no idea what I had planned. No idea that, while she was sneaking around, siphoning money from our joint accounts, entertaining Daniel in our home, orchestrating her own twisted games, I was documenting everything. I knew about the bank transfers, the offshore accounts, the gifts she had bought with my money for him. The designer watches, the vacations she had secretly booked, the private dinners at high-end restaurants under assumed names. She thought she was smart. She thought she was untouchable. But I had been watching. And I had been patient. Felix had done his part, ensuring every financial move she made was recorded. Every lie she told was carefully catalogued. He had traced every dollar she had moved, every asset she had tried to hide. "You sure you want to do this?" Felix had asked me on the phone just days before, his voice even professional. "No hesitation," I had responded. "Make sure every piece is in place. When I go in, I want her to have no way out." Felix had chuckled. "Cold as ice, my friend." Not cold. Calculated. The last performance. It was evening when I set the next phase into motion. The fire crackled in the grand fireplace of our living room, casting flickering shadows across the walls. Isabella was curled up on the couch in her silk robe, her phone in her hands, her bare legs stretched across the cushions. She looked so at ease, so sure of herself. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "You're home early," she murmured, scrolling through whatever meaningless distraction she had pulled up on her screen. "I wanted to see you," I said smoothly, pouring myself a glass of whiskey from the bar. "It's been a while since we've had a night alone." She glanced up then, arching a brow. "Alone?" "No, Daniel," I said simply, watching her reaction. A flicker of something passed through her eyes, so fast most wouldn't have caught it. But I wasn't most. She laughed, shaking her head. "Jealous? Should I be?" I countered, sipping my drink. She set her phone down, stretching lazily. "Thomas, you're the one who agreed to this arrangement. Don't tell me you're getting cold feet now." "Not at all," I said. "In fact, I think it's time we take things to the next level." That got her attention. She sat up slightly, tilting her head. "Oh!" I took another sip, watching her over the rim of my glass. "I've been thinking, maybe we should start documenting things. You know, for us." She frowned. "What do you mean?" "Videos," I said smoothly. "Memories. We've been living this lifestyle for a while now, but it's all in the moment. I think it would be exhilarating to be able to relive it whenever we want." Her lips parted slightly, and I saw the wheels turning in her head. "You're full of surprises," she murmured, amusement flickering in her gaze. "I like to keep things interesting," I replied. She studied me for a moment, then smirked. "All right, I'll bite. Maybe that could be fun." I smiled. "Good. Because I already have the perfect setup." She had no idea that I had already been recording her. That every moan, every word of humiliation, every degradation she had thrown my way had been captured in crystal-clear quality. She thought she was agreeing to something new. But in reality, she had just given me permission to continue. The first blow. 2 days later, I sent the videos. Not to her. To Daniel. To her family. To the press. And most importantly, to the police. It started with Daniel. A single email. No subject line. No message. Just the footage. I imagined the look on his face as he opened it, expecting something harmless, only to be met with the full, unfiltered reality of what he had participated in. Every moment where Isabella had mocked him behind his back. Every time she had whispered his name while she was fucking another man. Every bank transaction where she had stolen from me to buy herself gifts, not for him, but for herself. It was all there. Daniel was just another pawn in her game. And now he knew it. The explosion. The moment she realized what I had done, Isabella lost it. She came home in a fury, storming into my study, her phone clutched in her shaking hands. "What the fuck did you do?" she screamed, her voice raw with panic, with rage. I leaned back in my chair, utterly calm. "Whatever do you mean, darling?" She threw her phone onto the desk. The screen was still open, message after message, missed calls, notifications blowing up. "You ruined me," she shrieked, her breath ragged. "My parents won't answer my calls. Daniel is fucking furious. He thinks I set him up. The police." "Ah, yes. The police." I swirled my drink lazily. "They'll be here soon, you know. Fraud is a serious crime. And those offshore accounts you thought you were being so clever about? I made sure they lead right back to you." Her face drained of color. You bastard." I stood, walking toward her, slowly, deliberately, until she was backed against the wall. "No, Isabella." I tilted her chin up, forcing her to look at me. "You thought you were the master manipulator. But you forgot one simple rule." She swallowed hard, her breath shaky. "Never play a game you don't know how to win." She had played me for a fool. But now the queen was falling. And I was the one standing on top. Chapter 5: The Fall. The beginning of the end. Isabella had always been untouchable. Or at least she believed she was. She had moved through life with a kind of arrogance that only came from knowing that people would always bend to her will. Men craved her. Women envied her. She had built her power on the foundations of seduction, manipulation, and control. And yet here she was standing in front of me, trembling. For the first time since I had met her, Isabella looked afraid. She had stormed into my study, wild-eyed, her face pale beneath the dim glow of my desk lamp. She looked nothing like the goddess she had always presented herself to be. The mask had cracked, the illusion was slipping, and the weight of reality was beginning to crush her. I sat calmly watching her. She, on the other hand, was unraveling. "Thomas," she whispered, voice hoarse. "You can't do this to me." I leaned back in my chair, swirling the whiskey in my glass, letting the silence stretch long enough for her to feel it. The kind of silence that suffocated, that twisted in the air like a noose. "Oh, sweetheart," I finally murmured, my voice dripping with amusement. I already did. Her hands trembled as she held up her phone, her knuckles white from how tightly she was gripping it. "You ruined me." "No," I corrected, standing slowly. "You ruined yourself." Her breath hitched. I took a step toward her, my eyes locked onto hers. "You lied," I continued, my voice measured, calm. "You stole. You played your little games, thinking you were invincible. Thinking I was weak. Another step. But you forgot, Isabella." Her back hit the wall, her body rigid as I closed the distance between us. "You were playing against me." She flinched, her breathing uneven. "I can fix this," she rasped. "We can fix this. We can make a deal. Please, Thomas, just..." "A deal?" I let out a cold laugh, shaking my head. "You think this is negotiable?" I reached into my desk drawer, pulling out a thick stack of documents and tossing them onto the desk between us. The papers scattered, some sliding onto the floor, revealing copies of bank statements, emails, video transcripts, every single piece of evidence that tied her to her crimes. Fraud, embezzlement, adultery. It was all there. Her entire world, reduced to a series of cold, damning facts. She stared at the papers, her face draining of all color. "Where did you get these?" she whispered. "I've been watching you for months, Isabella," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "Every secret, every lie, every cent you've stolen, I have it all." Tears welled in her eyes, her lips trembling. "Thomas, I didn't mean..." I slammed my hand against the desk, making her jump. "Don't," I snarled. "Don't insult me with more lies. We both know exactly who you are. And we both know exactly what you deserve." She let out a choked sob, her body shaking. "Good. Let her feel it. Let her understand. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. This was about taking back everything she had stolen from me. Not just the money, not just my dignity, but the power she had stripped from me every time she had laughed in my face, every time she had whispered my name in mockery while she fucked another man. And now it was her turn to beg. The final betrayal. Her legs gave out, and she sank onto the floor, her fingers gripping the fabric of her robe as if it could somehow shield her from the truth. "Please," she whimpered. "You don't have to do this. We can find another way. You still love me. I know you do." "Love." I almost laughed. "Love," I repeated, crouching down so we were eye level. "Let me ask you something, Isabella. Do you love me?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I tilted my head. "Go on. Tell me. Say it." A tear slid down her cheek. I. "You can't say it," I murmured. "Because it was never real. You don't love me. You never did. You loved what I could give you. The wealth. The power. The security. But me? No, Isabella. You never loved me." She let out a broken sob, covering her face with her hands. I stood, towering over her, watching as she crumbled into the very thing she had always despised, someone powerless. And then the doorbell rang. She flinched at the sound, her head snapping up, eyes wide with horror. "What is that?" she whispered. I smiled. "That," I said, walking past her, "would be the authorities." Her breath caught in her throat. No, Thomas, please." The knocking came again, louder this time. "Isabella Carter, open the door. We have a warrant for your arrest." She screamed, a guttural, desperate sound, one that scraped against the walls of the room like nails on glass. "Thomas, please don't do this. I'll fix it, I swear I'll..." I grabbed her wrist, pulling her to her feet. She fought me, struggling, her nails digging into my arms as she tried to resist. But it was over. "It's too late, Isabella," I whispered in her ear. "Game over." The knocking turned into pounding. I let go of her, stepping back as she stumbled, her chest rising and falling in frantic, uneven breaths. For a moment, she just stared at me. And then, in a final, pathetic attempt to regain control, she whispered, "You're going to regret this." I smirked. "No, sweetheart," I said, stepping past her. "I'm going to enjoy it." I opened the door. The officers stepped in. And as they dragged her away, kicking and screaming, begging, sobbing, I poured myself another drink. Because for the first time in years, I was finally free. Chapter 6, No Way Out. The Aftermath of Destruction. The house was eerily quiet after they took her. For the first time in years, I was alone. Truly alone. No more soft footsteps echoing down the marble floors late at night when she thought I was asleep. No more faint whispers of her voice as she sweet-talked another man over the phone in the next room. No more perfume lingering in the air, a scent I had once found intoxicating but now recognized as a weapon she had used against me. It was done. Isabella Carter, the woman who had humiliated me, who had stolen from me, who had manipulated and controlled me for so long, was gone. And yet, as I stood there, staring at the now empty space where she had been dragged away, a strange emptiness settled into my chest. I poured myself another drink, my hands steady, my mind sharp. This wasn't sadness. It wasn't regret. It was calculation. Because even though Isabella was out of the house, she wasn't out of my life. Not yet. Not completely. I walked to my desk and sat down, fingers tapping against the polished wood as I considered my next move. The police had enough to bury her. Felix had made sure of that. The fraud charges alone were enough to put her away for years, but the evidence of her offshore accounts, the blackmail attempts, the stolen funds, those were the nails in her coffin. But Isabella wasn't the type to go down without a fight. She was a snake, a creature of survival. She would twist, she would lie, she would manipulate. And so, I needed to be sure that she stayed buried. I pulled up the footage again, the same footage I had sent to the press, to Daniel, to her family. I watched as she laughed, as she degraded me, as she believed she was untouchable. The world was already turning against her. The media had picked up the scandal within hours of the footage being leaked. Social media was ablaze with headlines. Socialite Isabella Carter arrested in fraud and infidelity scandal, shocking video footage leaked. Luxury lifestyle funded by lies, how one woman's greed brought her down. The trophy wife's betrayal, husband exposes dirty secrets. The court of public opinion had already decided. She was guilty. And in a world like hers, where appearances meant everything, this was a death sentence. Her so-called friends had already begun to distance themselves. The same women who had once worshipped her, envied her, longed to be her? Now they wouldn't even return her calls. I could only imagine her now, sitting in a cold interrogation room, hands shaking as reality began to set in. For the first time in her life, there was no one to save her. No men to seduce. No lies left to spin. Just her. Alone. The first attempt. It didn't take long for her to reach out. 2 days after her arrest, I received the first call. I was in my study, going through a list of damage control statements that Felix had drafted for me, ensuring my name remained clean in all of this. The phone buzzed, vibrating against the wood. Blocked number. I didn't even have to guess. I answered, waiting. Thomas. Her voice was raw, hollow. Nothing like the woman I had once known. I let the silence stretch, long enough to make her feel the weight of it. Say something, she whispered, her breath shaky. Please. You think you deserve my words? I asked, my tone smooth, calculated. She let out a sharp breath. I know what I did. I know I fucked up. But you have to understand. No, I cut in, my voice sharp. I don't have to understand anything, Isabella. They're charging me, she choked out. Do you even care? I smiled, though she couldn't see it. Oh, Isabella, I murmured. That was the point. Silence. A long, agonizing silence. Then, I can make this right, she said quickly, desperation creeping into her voice. You have to know that I never wanted it to end like this. We were good together, Thomas. You and I, we had something real once. No, I corrected. We had an illusion. Her breath hitched. But we can fix it, she pushed. You can drop the charges. We can walk away from this. I won't come after you, I swear. Do you think I'm an idiot? No. No, of course not, I just... Then don't insult me, Isabella. Another sharp silence. I could hear her unraveling. What do you want from me? She finally whispered, her voice breaking. I leaned back, smirking to myself. I already have what I want. And then I hung up. The last play. The next few weeks were a slow, satisfying destruction. Her trial moved quickly. The evidence was airtight. The prosecution painted her exactly as she was. A manipulative woman who used sex, deception, and fraud to get what she wanted. Her lawyers tried. They claimed she was coerced, that she was pressured into the lifestyle, that she was a victim of an abusive marriage. That was her last, desperate play. To turn me into the villain. To make the world see me as the cruel, controlling husband who had pushed her into infidelity, into stealing, into breaking the law. The media entertained it for a day. And then the next set of videos were leaked. Videos of her laughing about how easy it was to control men. Of her telling Daniel how she was bleeding me dry financially. Of her planning to leave me after she had drained every last dollar from our accounts. The jury didn't need long to decide. Guilty. She was sentenced to 8 years. Not just for the fraud, but for the conspiracy. She had planned to ruin me. And in the end, she had ruined herself. The final goodbye. The last time I saw Isabella was through a security monitor. She was sitting in a prison visitation room, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, her hair no longer perfectly styled, her skin no longer glowing from luxury spa treatments. She looked tired. Hello. Felix had called me that morning. She's asking to see you. No. You don't even want to hear what she has to say. I already know what she has to say, I said simply. Felix was quiet for a moment before he let out a short chuckle. Cold as ever, Thomas. Not cold. Done. I watched as she sat there waiting. Waiting for me to come. Waiting for me to give her one last chance. She would wait forever. Because I wasn't coming. And as I turned off the monitor, walking away from the past that had haunted me for so long, I realized something. I won. And there was no way out for her now. Not this time. Not ever. Chapter 7, Checkmate. The silence of victory. There was a strange kind of peace in the aftermath of destruction. Not the kind that came with relief. Not the kind that felt like a fresh start. No, this was the kind of peace that settled after a war had been won, after the blood had dried, after the bodies had been cleared, after the dust had finally settled over the battlefield. It was an empty, quiet kind of peace. And it was mine. For the first time in years, my house belonged only to me. No lingering scent of Isabella's perfume. No silk robes carelessly draped over my furniture. No sounds of her laughter echoing from the hallways, wrapping around me like a spell meant to keep me trapped. She was gone, and I was free. But victory was never as sweet as people made it out to be. It didn't come with a rush of euphoria, with an overwhelming sense of triumph. It came with silence, and silence had never felt so loud. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of my penthouse, staring out at the city below. The lights stretched for miles, a sea of gold and white, glowing against the night sky. I had built an empire here. My name was known in every boardroom, my influence whispered in corridors of power. And yet, for years, I had let her take control. I had let a single woman wrap me so tightly in her web of lies that I had almost forgotten who I was. Almost. Now she was nothing but a ghost. A cautionary tale. Her name would be whispered in scandal, her fall from grace immortalized in headlines and court documents. And me. I would go on. Because that's what men like me did. We survived. We won. Her last attempt. The first letter arrived 3 weeks after her sentencing. I knew it was from her before I even opened it. The envelope was thin, the handwriting familiar, slanted and elegant. For a brief moment, I debated throwing it into the fire without reading it. But curiosity was a strange thing. And I wanted to see what she had left to say. I unfolded the letter, my fingers grazing the cheap prison-issued paper. The words were written in perfect script, as if she had taken her time, as if she had planned every word carefully, just like she had always done. Thomas, I know you hate me. I don't blame you. I know that if you're reading this, it's not because you care. It's because you want to see me crawl. You want to hear me beg. But I'm not going to. I will say this, though. You may have won this round. But deep down, we both know what we were to each other. We both know how much we craved this game. The push and pull. The power struggle. The fire. I loved it. And I think in some twisted way you did too. You didn't just love me. You loved fighting me. And now you have no one left to fight. What happens to a man like you when there's no war left to win? I wonder if, when the silence gets too loud, you'll finally understand that maybe, just maybe, you lost just as much as I did. Isabella. I read the letter twice. Then I burned it. She was wrong. I hadn't lost anything. But the fact that she wanted me to think I had, that was proof enough that she had lost everything. The last nail in her coffin. I let time pass. Days bled into weeks. Weeks into months. The world moved on. Isabella Carter faded from the public eye, her name only mentioned in hushed whispers at socialite parties, in scandal documentaries, in articles about women who had tried to cheat the system and failed spectacularly. She had been replaced by newer scandals, newer betrayals. The cycle continued, and she became nothing more than a footnote in history. And then, 6 months after her sentencing, Felix called. "She's trying to appeal," he said, his tone laced with amusement. I smirked. "Of course she is. She's claiming she was coerced, that she was mentally manipulated by you, that you trapped her in a toxic marriage, and that you orchestrated all of this out of spite. Do they have anything solid?" "Not a damn thing," Felix chuckled. "But she's playing every card she has left." "Let her," I said simply, because I knew the truth. And so did the courts. Her appeal was denied. And this time, when she tried to call me, when she tried to send letters, I didn't answer. She didn't exist anymore. The final goodbye. 1 year later, I visited the prison. Not for her. For me. I didn't schedule a visit. I had no interest in seeing her face again, in hearing whatever last-ditch manipulation she had cooked up in her time behind bars. I only wanted to see. I stood outside the high fences, watching the rows of inmates in their beige jumpsuits moving through the yard. The place looked nothing like the world she had once ruled. She was a queen who had lost her throne. And from what Felix had told me, she was struggling. Badly. Her so-called friends had abandoned her. Daniel had moved on, engaged to another woman, probably trying to wash the stain of Isabella's betrayal off his reputation. Her family had disowned her. And me? I had forgotten her. She was nothing. I watched as she sat on a bench, her once perfect hair now dull, her nails no longer manicured, her once proud posture now slumped with defeat. She looked small, and for the first time in our entire twisted history, I saw her for what she truly was. Not a goddess, not a queen, not an untouchable force, just a woman, a broken, ruined woman. She turned her head slightly as if sensing something, and for a fleeting moment, our eyes met through the fence. Hers widened, recognition flashing through them. She stood up, her lips parting, but before she could move any closer, I turned and walked away. And I didn't look back. Checkmate. The end.